So first of all, like an example of label is psychic, right? So I really want to demystify psychic abilities. And I think it's been shrouded in mystery for way too long. And it's time for us to now remember who we are as human beings and the energetic nature of who we are as energy beings, and that these are innate abilities that are ready to be opened up by everyone now.
Please join me in welcoming our guests for our first dialogue together, Godelieve Willer. Godelieve, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm delighted to be here and excited to see where the conversation goes.
Awesome, awesome. It's a pleasure to have you. And I wanted to ask you a question which I ask all of our guests, especially during our first dialogue. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts on consciousness and what it is in your experience.
Oh, we start with the big questions, eh? So, for me, consciousness is the isness behind all that is. Consciousness is what creates and animates life, right? The ability to experience, to have awareness, right? Consciousness is the fabric or the field that allows for all possibility. And so, generally, also, the more conscious something is, the greater the ability to experience, have greater awareness, ability to perceive. And of course, consciousness is indestructible, right? And from how I perceive the world since birth is that everything has consciousness because everything is a part of the fabric of consciousness, right? So it's kind of may sound abstract and high level, but that really is, that's the best way that I can kind of explain what my view of consciousness is.
Absolutely. And you have such an interesting story to go along with that. You mentioned on your website that you were born with intact memories as well as extrasensory abilities. I'm
Right.
curious, how did you find out about them? And can you go over some of the challenges you went through to find your true self?
Oh gosh, yeah. Huge story. We could be here all day. Yeah. So going back to how I discovered I had them, because it's in hindsight that you have a better understanding. At the time, as long as I can, since as early as I can remember from birth, I had, I seem to have been more turned on or more open than the average person, on the planet. So we're kind of set up to forget during embodiment, but I didn't quite forget everything. And a big part of that was this feeling of connection and kinship with all life forms, whether they're animate or inanimate. And the idea that there was no separation between me and others, so to speak. And so I was able to really tune in and know things about things in the field. This is why I have this definition of consciousness, that of course I could know about, that life form over there because I was intimately connected via this field, right? And so that in layman's terms, I was clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, clairgnostic. So in other words, I could see, feel, hear, know things, sometimes smell, taste, like all kinds of other things that start to turn on when you re-access your innate abilities. But I was kind of born with them kind of already opening and functioning to a high level. Now, I didn't know that that was just my experience. I didn't know that not everyone experienced that, right? And so that took many years and layers of understanding to realize, oh, not everyone feels what others feel. Not everyone can see through, multiple unseen layers, right? As I started getting a little bit older, especially around the age of 9 or 10, is when I really started understanding it's not okay to talk about the things I see because literally there was consequence, punishment, etc. Very religious, and that wasn't allowed, right? So, but then again, it took into my adult years before I realized that other abilities that other people didn't experience, right? So, which really set me up in life, for disillusionment and, a jaded view on humanity, because I didn't understand, because I could see in people's fields the conflict within themselves, the heart mind disconnect, and I didn't understand why people did what they did and acted the way they did, why they denied their heart. Basically, that's the basic way I can say it. um, because I could see things register in their field, but then they would either be ignored or acted against, and it was really confusing. Like, an example would be, because I saw everything as sentient and, basically I had this deep, profound, sacred reverence for everything. So plants, trees, whatever. And then if someone just really treated any life form with disrespect, for example, I grew up on a farm and animals were not feeling sentient beings. They were just commodities to be bought and sold and slaughtered, right? And so incredibly painful, because I didn't understand that they didn't experience the world the way I did. So I felt like people were just cruel, unimaginably cruel. And it took me a long time to finally realize that no, they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't feel the consequences of their actions. Right. So that's when I started later in life. And we're passing through a lot. But I finally came to the point where I was like, so depressed, trying to fit in, be accepted, right? So I really did not talk about my abilities. And I went through this period of really shutting down my abilities, really turning away from them, because I wanted so badly to fit in and be normal and, have a normal life like everyone else, right? And throughout this process of shutting down, I actually was aware for a lot of it. And I had this feeling like, okay, do I really want to do this? And I don't know what the consequences are going to be by shutting down, but I'm going to do it, right? Because I really so badly wanted to fit in. Fast forward, into my 30s, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was just like soul sucking, right? Went into, like you said, went into the corporate world because it was safe, into business. That's very, normal. That's very safe, right? I was using some of my abilities, but never shared where knew the information from, etc. But I really was trying to hide who I was, and I really was struggling with, um, yeah, hiding who I really was and not living authentically, not being who I am, not sharing my abilities, my gifts, and being of service. So it came to the point where it was like I would rather die than continue living like this. Like, it was just so painful. And so I made the decision one day, the commitment to just say, screw it. I'm going to come out as the real me. And whatever happens, happens. But at least I can say I died trying to be me.
Uh,
Right. So that is the extremely condensed Coles Note version. But that's when I gave myself permission to start exploring my gifts. And what I found, which is so fascinating, that what I thought were these gifts and abilities before just expanded exponentially when I embraced them and gave myself permission to explore them. And that's consistently what I see with clients and students in my program. Once there's this like feeling of safety and giving permission to explore, it's amazing how quickly things can awaken and unfold for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I'm curious, was there a particular moment in your life that you said, okay, this is it. I'm going to open up. I'm going to, you know, allow this sort of energy and awareness to flow through me. Was there a particular moment in your life where that just triggered that desire?
Well, there was multiple.
Sure.
But I would say the one that really made me come out of the closet, so to speak, come out of the spiritual closet, um, was it just, I felt so sad that I was sitting on, like I had written books and written courses like for decades and just never share them. Right. And it just felt so sad that I had this information that I was going to, not share it, right? And I felt the other beings and the other realms that were like really encouraging me to share it. And I had, at that point, it sounds crazy, but I had never searched online to see if there was anyone else like me or never. And I was on YouTube one day and I found this soundtrack, of it was something like, it was some kind of meditation soundtrack that was other realms or something. And I was like, oh, this sounds lovely. And I was looking in the comment section and the people, what they were writing in, how it made them feel. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. there's other people that have this dream of another way of life being possible. And I just tuned into all of their hearts. And then I was just so inspired. I'm like, I need to come out now. And then it just became so clear what was at stake. Right. And in that moment, the big turning point was all of a sudden my perspective shifted in a really magical way. Because my whole life I had felt like I'm different, I'm defective, there's something wrong with me, I don't fit in, I don't feel comfortable around other people because they don't understand me. I just felt like there was something wrong with me. In that moment, I had the awareness that, yes, I'm different, but it's purposeful. It wasn't random, it wasn't a mistake. It was purposeful. And this is where a lot of people need to also have that realization that just like me, I was born different for a reason. And that difference is what's going to make a difference in the world right now.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. What can you tell us about the importance of bringing that balance into our lives? It seems like from what you're saying, you went from that conditioned, predominantly left brain way of looking at things to a very balanced way of looking at things, and you've clearly, opened up your heart center as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell people what the importance of being balanced and being in your heart center is?
Yeah. Those are both very big topics. So what happens a lot, right? And actually it's even more particularly pronounced in women, is that at a young age, many tend to over polarize into the masculine because traditionally, in our recent history, in our culture anyway, it's been safer to be in the left brain, to value science over heart, to proof and rationality and logical reasoning. That has all been a safe place to be, keeping things light here, right? And so if you were born someone who's highly right brain, highly creative, highly feminine in nature, open and sensitive, right? Being born in this world can be very harsh. And subconsciously, you start to learn at a young age, oh, it's when I express that part of me, it feels uncomfortable or I don't get approval. But when I express the other side, the reasoning, the rational, the intellect, all that things, I get approved of, I get rewarded, right? So at a young age, what can happen is some people over polarize into the masculine. I see it all the time. There's a lot of left brain career paths and everything too. And a lot of the clients and the people that come to me in my programs, they are very tuned in, creative right brain, and also very highly feminine in nature. But they're in these professions that are very left brain. And now they're like, it's like me. I had that point where I'm like, I can't resolve this conflict within myself anymore. I want to be me. I don't want to just pretend that I'm just that, right? And so, when you can resolve that, basically, if you want to just put it one sentence, return to who you really are, right? Your authentic, true, divine self, which it's not as easy as it may sound, right? There's some layers you got to go through and some understanding, right? But naturally, you'll start to balance that left and right, that masculine and feminine, because you do want both working, right? You don't want just one or the other to be dominant.
Absolutely. Yeah, wonderfully said. I've, you know, felt the same thing, and I think it's quite apparent in the society that we live in. Like you said, we tend to value what we consider logical step-by-step reasoning over that intuition that so many of us are born with and
Yep.
can use if we open ourselves up
Yes.
and realize really just how connected we are with everything around us.
Yes.
Um, ultimately shaping a better experience, not just for ourselves, but the everything around us.
Yes.
And ultimately, that is a direction where we want to go. Now, how about when it comes to opening the heart center?
Yeah.
What's your experience with regards to that, and how can one do that?
If someone asked me if you had to say what's the single most impactful thing that has, helped you open your gifts, et cetera, et cetera, I would say the work in the heart. The heart, the more I explore, the more experience I have, the more witnessing others. That is the heart field is what changes everything. Um, you can only get so far without opening the heart, right? And everything changes when you do it from heart energy, right? So sometimes, can sound a little abstract because some people go, oh, isn't that just a metaphor? Be in your heart, follow your heart. But in my experience and what I absolutely know, the answer is no, it's not just a metaphor. It's a intelligence. There is a greater consciousness in the heart that is beyond human reasoning, that is connected to your greater consciousness, right? Whether you want to call it, the soul, the oversoul, the higher self, whatever. It doesn't really matter at this point, right? Where we're talking, but it's your greater consciousness. And those phrases, follow your heart, the wisdom of the heart is so much truth in that. Problem is, the majority of people on the planet right now have a disconnect between the heart and the mind. So when you ask them, what is your heart's desire? Most people will say, I don't know. Or if you ask them, what are you passionate about? What lights up your heart? Well, I don't know, right? Because they've been trained to look away, to ignore the wisdom of their heart. When we're born, we're connected to the wisdom of our heart. That's a process that occurs to us during the conditioning and, adoption of a personality and basically the embodiment process, becoming a human being, right? In the limited sense, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And I think it was Greg Braden who once said, when one refers to themselves, oftentimes, they'll point towards their heart.
Yeah.
You usually
Yeah.
don't see anyone pointing to their head, right? When they
Yeah. Good
when they refer
point.
to themselves physically as well.
Yes.
So, a lot of absolutely a lot of our being, in fact, like you said, a core understanding of reality stems from our heart center.
Yeah.
How can we discern between what may be compulsions versus what is coming directly from our heart?
Good question. And that does take a little bit of time to become mindful of discerning the difference. But what I would say to that is, especially if you've ever, tried to meditate or you have meditated or you've gotten into that heart, because it is a feeling sensation, right? When you're in how you drop down into the heart, right? Um, and when you're in the heart and you're in that kind of called still point or stillness, right? And you can feel that, whether it's a sensation or just a feeling of ease, and the body starts to relax. And in that moment, there's no thinking or desire or outward. It's just in your own being, in the heart, you start to create a coherence in your field, right? And when you have this coherence in your field, you're able to think from the higher mind, let's say, or have higher awareness, greater perception, right? More consciousness can come in, right, from your own consciousness, and it starts to open things up. So, start by getting familiar with what it feels like to be in the heart and sitting in the heart. Then you can start to hear those desires. And I don't mean clairaudiently you're hearing. For many people, sometimes it can come in that way, but for many people, it's just a stirring in the heart. Because, like I said, the heart intelligence bypasses the human apparatus, I call it, right? The frontal lobe or the logical reasoning, the rational mind. So you can know things in your heart independently of what you know in your mind, right? So it might be just a deep desire for something. And what I have found is the heart speaks in simplicity, but the human mind wants to complicate it, right? So a heart's desire may simply to be to express yourself creatively, right? Because somehow on some level you feel like you can't do that. But the heart wants to express creatively, right? So maybe just a feeling, right? So simple, right? But in my experience, when people come to me and I want to know what my purpose is, etc., and they're thinking, "Oh, am I supposed to be a teacher, a doctor?" You know what I mean? But the heart is like way, way above and beyond that. Like it's so the purpose that your heart is going to share with you is way beyond any kind of career choice, right? Because the truth is, regardless of what your career is and what you do, what is really your greatest purpose is the field that you emanate, the unique frequency that you're bringing here into the physical realm. And I mean that into the physical realm, right? A lot of people want to go up and out of their bodies. right? But it's about bringing into the physical realm. So you hear the word ascension and when ascend, and well, the way I see it, it's descension of your greater consciousness coming into the body, grounding it here in the physical realm. That's what's going to shift the collective morphic field, the consciousness of humanity, right? There's a reason why you're here in a physical body. It's not to leave the body to have some other experience elsewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, we all came here for a purpose, right?
Yes.
And
Hmm.
what sort of uh, extrasensory abilities can one expect to develop by attaining this sort of a balance and being in one's heart center from your experience?
Yeah. So we all are born with innate abilities. So this is how I kind of explain it. So we are energy beings, right? We're having an embodied experience, it's an experience in physicality, but we exist, we're eternal, multidimensional energy beings. When we come into the body, yes, most of us forget our abilities as a multidimensional energy being because it's purposeful to have this experience, etc., right? But they're there. And we are using, to some degree, we're accessing these pathways, I call them, and some of us to greater degrees of another, but most of us, we are using them to some degree. We're just not aware of them, right? So you might get that gut instinct, right? Or you may, for example, a lot of artistic people, musicians, etc., they just will say, oh, the lyrics just popped right into my head and I couldn't keep up with writing, right? Like, so there's all these ways, and of course, many people have had visions, even if it's just once in their life, right? But so we have these experiences, and these are hints that you have these other super senses or other abilities that aren't the physical ones, although they kind of map onto some of the physical aspects. So, for example, clairaudience and hearing and clairknowing and clairvoyance, et cetera, right? So, I'm getting off track here. What was your question? Because you have to focus me here.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, exactly. No, you're right on track. What sort of
Oh, what
extrasensory
an
abilities can we
experience.
develop
Yeah,
given the balance
thank
and
you.
being our heart centers?
Yeah.
Of course.
I just
Oh,
wanted to
you're
give
right on
some
track.
backup. I need to give some background so people
Of course.
understand that they're innate to you. They come with you with a body, they're a part of you. And we can start to open them up while in the body. And this is the truly awesome, exciting part. And so I believe, and it's been my experience, and I have to say, I didn't always believe it was like, maybe I can try teaching people to open their gifts. I didn't know, but now I absolutely know that you can absolutely begin to open up those pathways and begin to use at least the what we call the primary clair abilities. So your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your clairgnosis, and your clairsentience, right? And there's multiple layers and variations of all those four. So they're way more complex than what most people realize.
Yeah.
And so what I began doing was, okay, if I want to help others see the world the way I do, which really is one of my deepest heart's desires, because then people will act differently if they perceive the world the way I do, right? So what I started allowing myself to do is, okay, someone comes to me, they want to increase their clairvoyance. So I'm like, okay, so well, why aren't they clairvoyant now? What's in the way? Right. And so I just started asking questions and looking deeper and discovering what gets in the way of us using our abilities. And now I'm absolutely convinced, and I witness it all the time, that there is a systematic, methodical ways that you can implement to open up these pathways. And then once you open them up, then you can, especially with the heart, begin to take them to the next level. And this is what's exciting because I think where we are right now in humanity's evolution is that there are more and more people now who are taking those traditional clair abilities and going way beyond and having really phenomenal experiences that really we can't put labels to yet. We can't really, what is happening here, right?
Yeah.
So it's very
Yeah.
exciting.
Absolutely. And, brings me to my next question actually. What are some reasons that people come to you for help? And what are some commonalities you see in their situations, both internal and external? And I would love to get an idea of how you were able to address them.
Yeah. So a lot of people come to me, and there's two kind of big camps that I see. One is that they do have a lot of experience with psychic phenomena. So they're highly intuitive. Maybe they've had experience of visions or really strong gut instincts or whatever, and they want to explore more now. They're like, I want to there's some potential here. I want to explore it, right? And perhaps they even have memories of having an imaginary friend as a child or seeing visions as a child, because that's a lot more common than you think. So, and the second kind of a group is I call it the second phase life mission. So they've lived a full life up until this point. They've got married, had kids, a family, they have a career, etc. Didn't really pay any attention to psychic abilities or anything else. And then all of a sudden, it's like this clock goes off in them and they have this persistent nudging calling that there's something more, that there's something more to them that wants to unfold, that there's something they want to do. There's something, they have this pressing feeling, right? Now, when we actually start working together, then in the programs I do, there's a lot that gets in the way in that. So the first thing we address is, okay, what I call blocks removal. And I have 5 major categories of psychic blocks or blocks to using your gifts, right? That are so common that nearly everyone has, right? So that's a whole nother conversation on its own. But, there's a lot of, I would say the major ones are fears, right? It's unbelievable how many people, aka everyone, has fears about using their gifts and coming out with their gifts, right? They're afraid to see for whatever reason, right? They're afraid to connect in, right? All manner of fears are present. And then there's the usual suspects, I call them, which is the self-doubt and the judgments, right? Well, who am I to receive messages from an angel, right? Who am I to see the future, right? Like these real identity issues, right? And self-doubt and judgments around that. Another thing is scar tissue, in particular around the heart. So scar tissue, what I call scar tissue, can be anywhere, but in particular around the heart, because that heart does make such a big difference in using your clair abilities, you can call them clair abilities, psychic abilities, intuitive abilities, or spiritual gifts, whatever you want to call them. These are the innate abilities that we're all born with, right? So that heart mind disconnect. And also, what they would be aware of come to me is difficulty identifying, well, what are my unique gifts? I don't feel like I really have any, right? But it doesn't take long to discover them. And I do readings on a psychic pathways assessment, and I can see if someone has a psychic strong suit, where they're really
Mhm.
oriented to a certain clair ability. And then, once I kind of tell them what I see, then things start to make sense to them. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense why I always dot dot dot, or as a kid I always used to dot dot dot, right? So there's a process that I apply, and depending if it's in a program or private mentoring, but the process is simple. It's about removing the resistance that's in the way, first of all, to you opening up your gifts and using them again, right? Then, of course, there's what I call retraining the brain, because our brain is trainable and our brain is trained. And so it's, if you're, in midlife right now or in your 30s or whatever, and you feel like you can't use your gifts or see clairvoyantly, for example, you have trained your brain to not see, let's say, right? Or to see only certain things. And so it's a retraining process of, making those new neural networks and getting out of old habits, or what I call energetic tendencies, right? And I could really go on for days about all the energetic tendencies that I've seen, right? And there's some very common ones, right? Actually, maybe I'll share a common one, because I think this one could be really helpful, because I see it so much. It's one of the most common ones when someone's trying to practice their gifts, let's say, and they'll get an immediate, let's say they want to hear a word or see something, and they'll get something, if they do get something, and then they'll be like, well, I just got one word and I don't know what it means, and that's it. Or, yeah, I got a picture of a tree, but I don't know what it meant, so I threw it out, right? And so the tendency is the brain wants to identify what it is and make an assumption so fast. That's a human tendency. We want to slap a label on right away. We want to know what it is because we feel safer when we know what something is. So that's an energetic tendency or a habit. We just jump to a conclusion or an assumption without sitting with the energy of the message and allowing the fullness of the message to bubble up and come through before you make an assumption, slap a label on, etc. So the longer you sit with the message or whatever it is, however it comes in, but training yourself to catch yourself when you want to, oh, this is that, or this means that, right? Um, Training yourself to be mindful of when that happens, that tendency, that urge, and actually sit in the discomfort of not knowing what it is. Yeah, so that's a big one. So we have retrain your brain. Of course, then it's what I call applying your gifts, right? So it's different from practice. Applying your gifts is exploration. And I take, it's like I point your awareness, let's say, in a new direction that you've never looked before. And what's fascinating is that always, 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 when this happens, people discover new things about their abilities because they've never looked over there before. They've never tried to feel that. They've never tried to, use this ability in this way, right? So there's exploration and applying. And like physical muscles, it's a workout. You can get fatigued really quickly by training, like using your clairvoyance if you're not used to using it all the time. So, and then the last one just mention is practice then. So once you've discovered, oh, I can do this. If I have the intention, to see a message, let's say, I can do this. So now what do I want to practice with? And then you practice something that you want to refine the outcome or results of, right? So, that's kind of in a nutshell the broad categories of things that need to be addressed. So subconscious beliefs are part of that. Conscious beliefs and mindset are hugely a part of that, right? There's also your soul path and purpose, right? That plays into the amount of access to your abilities you have at any given point in your life, because it will change throughout your life. Absolutely change throughout my life too. There's a lot of factors involved. But if you have the desire to connect in to what I call your ultimate guidance system, right? When your clair abilities are online and working to assist you, right? To guide you in your life and your decisions, etc. Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. And what are some of the benefits of rediscovering yourself, both to the collective as well as oneself?
Oh, good question, Stu, because I like what you said, both to the collective and to yourself. And so I'm going to start with the first part you said. When you open up, get a coherent heart field, start accessing possibility, this has an effect on what I call, the fabric, I think Rupert Sheldrake coined the term morphic field, right? It's like the collective soup that we're all in. That's what I kind of think of it as, like we're all connected in this field, is the way I perceive things, right? We're all in this consciousness field. And when one breaks out of the mold, so to speak, and creates a new template, right? Of openness, of heart coherence, right? Of accessing, parts of the greater consciousness. It provides a template for others to choose, and it ripples out into the field as an option to choose. And it also carries a new tone. When you have a coherent field, you're like sending out a coherent tone, which affects the tones of everything else, right? I'm trying to speak simply about it here, and how I perceive it, right? But it's just kind of like a tuning fork type of phenomenon in a way, right? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
there's that, and on the personal level, that's why I call it the ultimate guidance system. I never have to worry anymore. Like I used to before, be like, oh, what do I do? For a job, or if I had a decision to make, which choice should I choose? Right? Like which path is right for me? When you have your ultimate guidance system working for you, that kind of goes away because you tune in and you just are guided, and whatever way it comes in for you, right? And maybe just a feeling of knowing choice A is right for me, or maybe you do get information clairvoyantly, or maybe clairaudiently, or maybe you just know what the right path is, right? But life becomes so much more full of ease and grace when you're connected and receiving information from your greater consciousness and perhaps your guides or other beings as well. And it really, when you're starting out, it really doesn't matter to know, um, for example, is it my guide or is it an angel or is it my higher self, right? When you start connecting up, all that kind of opens up for you. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Um, you mentioned labels earlier. What are some examples of labels that can be limiting, and what's the significance of seeing past labels in this day and age?
Yeah. I like that last part of your question too. So first of all, like an example of label um, is psychic, right? So I really want to demystify psychic abilities, and I think it's been shrouded in mystery for way too long, and it's time for us to now remember who we are as human beings and the energetic nature of who we are as energy beings, and that these are innate abilities that are ready to be opened up by everyone now. And so the last part of your question, then, how are they limiting? Labels are limiting. Um, even, I hesitate myself because people always want to know, "Well, what are you?" If I go on a show on this, like, what's your title or what are you? And it's like, I give something. That's what I'm calling myself right now because I need to put something. But really, when you start accessing your multidimensional nature, you start to realize how limiting labels are, right? So someone in the past may have been just clairvoyant. But what I'm seeing now in my students and my clients and people, um, the ones who, may have thought they were just clairvoyant are realizing, oh my gosh, there's so much more beyond their clairvoyance. And when you really start opening up to these gifts, what happens is they start working in tandem so collaboratively together that you get the fullness and richness of the information through all of these pathways and more. And you can't really decipher or separate out, oh, it's my clairvoyance or it's this, because you're getting the information through all of those sensory pathways, right? I don't know if that was exactly the question you were asking about, but in
Yes.
general, whenever you slap a label on something, you limit its growth and understanding, right? It's just like if you don't know what something is, like I don't know, let's say you're walking in the woods and you see something rushing in the bushes, right? Or and you're like, oh, what is it? And you're attuned, and you're like, oh, it's about this size. It's looks furry. It's about black. It's like I'm not sure, but you're like engaged and you're like open to learning about it. If someone up ahead goes, "Oh, it's just a cat." You're like, "Oh, it's just a cat." Immediately, the ego, the mind stops investigating, thinks it knows it already, and moves on. Right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, it seems like these labels can almost box us in and prevent us from seeing what we truly are and what aspect of that is being represented.
yes.
Um,
Yeah, especially
wow.
labels like, labels at the human level, right? Like, oh,
Yes.
I'm a doctor, or oh, I'm a teacher, or oh, I'm a whatever it is, we're so much more than that. We're these vast multidimensional beings, right? And like you said earlier, here for a purpose. And so don't box yourself in. I love that. And it is like boxing yourself in. Yeah.
Even some conditions that we tend to refer to our particular aspects or maybe imbalances as can also be labels. For example, we refer to ourselves as having ADHD or anxiety or depression, when in reality we may be facing some sort of an energetic imbalance, and things are a bit more straightforward than they may appear due to those labels, or at least can be addressed in a healthier, more productive way. um, so many of us have referred to our internal situations as being whatever label, when in reality, if we do a little bit of work internally, often we can address those and be quite productive in our own journeys, really.
Percent agree. There is always a root cause for everything. Someone's not just They don't just have ADHD. And that's, if you've given that diagnosis, that's not the end of it for you. And I would highly encourage you to explore that. And actually, I don't know if you're familiar with someone named Gabor Mate, Dr. Gabor Mate. He's
I'm not.
done wonderful stuff, written books on his take on ADHD, and it has to do with early childhood development and your experience as a child. So yeah, I read his stuff. I'm like, he's 100% right. It exactly concurs with what I see in my clients and students and people at large in the public, right? Yeah,
And I'm sorry, what was that name that you mentioned? Just so if viewers are interested, they can
yeah.
look
Dr.
into his
Gabor
work.
Mate, Gabor, so Gabor, and I don't know if I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Maybe it's Gabor, I don't know, but Gabor Mate, Mate.
I see.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's done a lot on ADHD. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I would encourage anyone who is curious about these sorts of quote unquote conditions and to look into work like that as well as your own. If you were to speak to the entire population of the world at once, what message would you like to give?
Oh, so one thing I would just want everyone to know is that you're so much more than what you realize, right? Now, problem with speaking to the whole world is that a single message isn't going to resonate with every single one, right? But what I would say is I'd probably share a message to those who are ready to remember who they are and why they're here now. And so for those hearts, I think they'll be able to hear the following message. And the message will be something like, I know you've been holding the dream, right? I know you've felt alone, different, like you don't fit, and that there seems to be no room for your deepest heart's desires and truths in this world. But that you felt like you've had to turn down your light so that others don't feel uncomfortable, right? Or you've had to silence your truth for fear of repercussion, judgments, or negative consequences, right? But what I want you to ponder on is, what if you were born different because you're here to make a difference? And it's your difference that will make the difference, right? The world doesn't need more of the same old, right? We need your unique perspective, your wisdom, your talents, your gifts. And so I would hope that that would resonate with as many people as possible, is knowing that they are unique. And if they feel different, it's purposeful. And to really understand themselves and dive into that and discover their unique expression that wants to come forth, because we need that. We need that in the world now.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. What are you looking forward to most for our world?
Ah, what I'm really looking forward to is the beautiful and magical ways that heart energy is going to appear on the planet. And it has already been starting for a while. But the beautiful ways that humanity will connect in with their hearts and come up with amazing discoveries and solutions to what we see as the Earth's problems right now and our problems amongst ourselves. These amazing solutions, and really just heart energy returning to the planet, where there's this amazing, joyful kind of reunion with understanding ourselves as sisters and brothers with all the other life forms on the planet, and seeing all the joy that comes forth from that. So that's something that completely lights up my heart, is when I see evidence of that happening.
And through a connected society, hopefully we can accelerate towards that destination, quicker than ever.
Yeah, I think we are. Meet people like you all the time now, and it's so enheartening, you know?
Oh, wow. For our viewers, where can we find more about what you do and how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, probably going to my website's the best. So it's godelievewiller.com, and it's spelled, I know it's a bit tricky. So you take the word God and believe, and then drop the letter B, and it's Godelieve. And Willer is Willer. So godelievewiller.com. So you can check out my website. And also, If you sign up for my newsletter, so you'll find out when my next live program is running, which is coming up soon. And also, I offer every year free live events for subscribers only. So don't advertise it anywhere else. Just if you're subscribed to my list, you'll get the invite. But yeah, that's probably the best way to find out what I'm up to.
Wonderful. Yeah, to all our viewers, please check out Godelive's website for more information on how you can utilize her skills for your own healing and growth. All relevant links are going to be shared in the description. If you've received any insightful information from our guests like Godelieve and other spiritually attuned beings, please like the video, share the knowledge, and subscribe to get notified of upcoming dialogues, as it helps spread the importance of evolving both as individuals and as a global community. You thank everybody. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. And Godelieve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wonderful story, your insights, and for being who you choose to be. It's made a big difference, I'm sure, in everyone that you've come across, just given the energy that I'm picking up from you, along with everything else that you've shared. And I would love to have you on again sometime.
I'd love that. And I was a delight to be here with you today. And thank you for sharing the light, spreading the light around and doing what you're doing. I would love to return for another conversation.
Wonderful. I look forward to covering everything that we couldn't cover today.
Yes, that's a lot. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
again.